Okay, scholar, practitioner, leaders, data scientists, we are now back here on our lecture 2 of 4. We just completed lecture 1 of 4 for our week 3. Now, I want to finish, continued speaking on our week 2 material, guys, because we had some great learning material from the previous week 2. And I just want to go back to just confirm, reaffirm everything that I spoke in the last week's lecture, week 2's lecture did truly come to form. And that's what it's all about. Because as I always keep telling you guys, I always want to make sure that I'd rather over prepare you than under prepare you, right? So, and that's what it's all about here in our time together, guys, because my goal, as it's been working out thus far, that if I do that, it's very indicative of your scoring because evidently something's going on very right in our class. And it's more than likely it's your instructor, your professor, yours truly, giving you an abundance of work. But again, I'd rather over prepare you than under prepare you and the scoring be really, really low. And I never want to see that. So I'd rather be safe than sorry, to make a long story short, guys. So, and again, you guys' quizzes, yes. So that's the reason why I'm happy because sometimes I wonder, hey, am I giving them too much? And I guess I'm not. So it's working out really, really well because, again, the last thing I want to do is try to bamboozle you guys, not give you enough, and then you got to try to discover things on yourselves. And for me, doing it yourselves like that, that's not what it's all about. Okay. In some courses it is, but for our course, as long as I give you the concise material, you will be successful. And the thing is, you got to make sure you retain it. So a good way to retain it is by, yes, taking great notes. Okay. Alrighty. So let's go over the material for week 2, guys, before we jump into our week 3 material, which we're going to start week 3's material in lecture 3 of 4. But for this lecture 2 of 4, let's continue discussing all the great things from last week. The reason why you guys were so successful. Okay. Now you remember last week in the lecture, the oral lecture, I said that the main learning material that you're going to have to really look at, guys, to be successful on those 2 quizzes, as I previously mentioned in lecture 1 of 4 of this week's lecture, was chapters 1 and 2 with that little carryover into chapter 3, right? And it was because some of you did reach out about that, and I didn't want to give you that. That's an extra. So you guys did follow through in the chapter 3 as well, but 98%, 99% of it was in chapters 1 and 2, as you guys really eloquently saw. And I really appreciate that. So, if you remember in chapter 1, for our practical statistics for data scientists, exploratory data analysis, right? That was all about exploring binary and categorical data, and then also correlation and exploring 2 or more variables. And that was it for chapter 1, guys. So, and if you notice, that was all in the quiz. So there's a reason why I tell you look at those certain sections, guys. And like I said, and the thing about chapter 1, guys, that was our indoctrination to our course chapter. All you had to do was take good notes. Same thing in week 1, like I told you about chapters 1 and 2. It was different sections of chapters 1 and 2 that you had to take those notes on as well. Same thing last week, guys. Again, I'm not going to steer you wrong. And like I said, I'm really at a good place far as the scoring thus far. So it lets me know that my job is really concise with you guys. Okay. So chapter 1 was all about, again, looking at exploring 2 or more variables, looking at correlation. And then the third item was exploring binary and categorical data, as you guys saw. And then chapter 2 in our book, Practical Statistics for Data Scientists, Data and Sampling Distributions book, that was all about making sure, in chapter 2, of course, uh, the chapter, not the book. In chapter 2 was looking at those 6 areas that I had mentioned to you last week, right? And I really wanted you to take your time on those areas, guys, because just like chapter 1, those 3 areas, This was really getting into the meat and potatoes of a lot of the good things that you're going to be doing all the way up until week 8. So that's why, especially the bootstrap, right? So I mentioned that the bootstrap is really cool, how that gets laid out. All you had to do was comprehend it, dissect it, and digest it. So as long as you digest all these 6 areas, you would have been very successful on the quiz, because you saw that second quiz was all about these 6 items, guys. And that's what I wanted you to really take your time. And that's the reason why I kept emphasizing chapter 2, repeating those sections, those 6 areas, because that was going to be the meat and potatoes of the quiz, as you guys saw. And it looks like you guys nailed it, because I think you actually listened to me on my oral lecture. So thank you. Thank you, everybody, for that. And I can tell that you're listening, because when I go out to my oral lectures, I get a lot of views where everybody's looking and actually listening to my lectures. So, and I'm always very happy with that, because I put a lot of effort making sure you guys have everything you need, as I keep reiterating to you guys, because I want you to be successful. Okay. And the way you be successful in this course is that you got to do your part. And it looks as though everybody is, in fact, doing that. So kudos to you guys. Give yourselves a good pat on the back thus far. So don't take your feet off the pedal. Please don't. Okay. It's only week 2. We got 6 more weeks, including this week 3. Okay. However, but as I previously mentioned, the practical statistics for data scientists, the data and sampling distributions in chapter 2, there were 6 areas, okay? Random sampling and sampling biases, okay? That was huge, as you guys saw. I mean, you guys saw it, very, very huge. You had to be able, as I mentioned last week, differentiate random sampling versus sampling biases. You got to understand how to recognize it when you see it. Okay, you can be partial to something, but it may not be a bias, right? Okay, or it could be random sampling, but is that truly a sample bias, right? So you got to know how to maneuver around that and be able to differentiate that. So, and it looks like you guys' differentiation skills were right where it needed to be at. And that comes from, again, reading and taking great notes, okay? And then the second area, 2 of 6, was all about the selection bias, okay? So you had those 2 types of biases, selection and sample bias, along with the random sampling, okay? You have to be able to differentiate in this course, period, okay? The third thing was sample distributions of statistic, of a statistic, just one statistic. Being able to understand the sampling distribution of just one statistic, okay? Understand it in its entirety, because believe it or not, it's really complex, guys. So you got to have that foundation. And that's what this course is all about, okay? And the book shows you exactly how to understand and be very comfortable with that, okay? So with that being said, and then also we had the bootstrap. There it is, the therefore bootstrap, that I've been wanting you guys to really have fun. Just like the name itself, bootstrap, that is a great, great tool that we use as data scientists in statistics to understand data. So understanding bootstrap is really huge, guys. So when you're trying to extrapolate data, I hope you enjoyed that. That was one that you can really, really use a lot as you matriculate through our course. You're going to be doing a lot of bootstrapping. So just be mindful of that and make sure you have a good understanding of that. And it looks like many of you already do. So kudos to you guys. And then there's the confidence intervals. We know about the confidence intervals, guys. The book gets very, very granular with that. Pretty straightforward. Things falling within a certain confidence, the respective intervals. You got to know which intervals when things actually do fall within that space, okay? So the book is very concise about that. And last but not least, normal distribution, okay? So, and we know about that's the best distribution that we as data scientists typically look for when we're looking at data and trying to understand data. Because typically, if it's not normal, for data scientists, we have to normalize the data. And that's why we use normal distributions to try to understand why it's not normal. And you may not. Sometimes we can't normalize it because based on the data, this is the way it is. and it falls into other categories based on the data sample size that we pull or are actually examining. So that's always huge, guys. Very, very, very huge. So those are the 6 items in chapter 2 for data and sampling distributions. Okay, so that was pretty straightforward. And then also, you remember that I gave you within the Model and Statistics with an R book. That's the link inside the content for week 2 that I gave you. The book that we use inside the content. You guys know about that now, right? So I gave you that section 5, dealing with messy data. Now that's pretty cool. So if you looked at that, guys, and read that, how to extrapolate messy data, how to go about it, the way you engage with it, and how you're going to actually infer it based on your extrapolations of the data, right? Using Python, using the R tool to deal with messy data. So the book is really, really concise on that. And like I said, it's really granular, so it makes it really fun to understand that. Like whenever, because a lot of times you guys may have already seen it, you're going to get messy data all the time. Number one, when you get that messy data, what's the first thing you got to do? We have to clean it. We have to clean this data up to make it usable for what we're trying to do. So the book really, really talks about that. And you saw that going over that modern statistics with the R section 5 there. That was really cool, dealing with the messy data. And again, hope you guys liked it. I know I enjoyed giving it to you. Okay. And then also, as always, we have the supplemental book material if you guys want to get further more into things like dealing with messy data, the bootstrap, selection biases, normal distributions, confidence interval. You could always go to the supplemental book material to get, again, that's why it's supplemental, to get more material, because your brain is probably, you know what, I'm really into this. I want to get more. So there you go. I'm always offering that link to you guys if you want to get more things outside your modern statistics with an R book and your practical statistics for data scientists book. You can always, and I'm always encouraging you guys to feel free to use that supplemental book material link. That's what it's there for, okay? And then if you have any issues, as always, I'm going to always put that R tutorial out there, because some people may not quite be affluent yet. They're using it, but they're not quite there. Hey, that's there for you guys. I know you probably didn't use it during the quizzes from week 2, but moving forward, I'm always going to present that to you just in case you need it, okay? So again, so after the quizzes last week, guys, you guys saw, hey, there was the supplemental book material and dealing with messy data. So let's talk about the quizzes, guys, because that's all we had left for week 2. Okay. So those quizzes, it was 2 quizzes that we actually did last week. And the first one was describing data with graphs. And that's exactly what it's all about. Now, that was pretty straightforward. It was predicated specifically on week 1's material. Okay. So if you go back to week 1 and look at all the areas that I discussed in week 1, you'll see, hey, this quiz looks very familiar. So you had the pool of questions, you had those 20 questions that was all worth 1.75 each. So you had 20 questions. As I mentioned, it was multiple choice. And you also had fill in the blank questions. And that was pretty much it. Describing data with graphs. You know the areas that you need to work on because you saw your scoring when you missed it. And you also saw the answers. So that's always a good thing from the quizzes, okay? And I'm not going to go over it, guys, because I don't like to beat that dead horse. You know the areas that you were short in for describing data with graphs. And that was pretty cool. And I'm hoping that you guys truly enjoyed the quiz, because I really want to make sure that, hey, when I gave it to you, I want you to like it. And that's, for me, is truly the win-win for quiz number 1, okay? So now we had a second quiz, and When I come back for our lecture 3 of 4, we're actually going to go over the second quiz. And then after that, we will jump into our week 3 material, starting with our overview and my deliverables that I'm expecting for this ensuing week. So I will see you guys in about 15 seconds for our next lecture, which will be lecture 3 of 4 for our statistics course here at the University of Cumberland. See you in just a bit. Bye-bye.